Hello, everyone. Megan Amaya here. I recognize some names in the attendee list, so welcome, and people will continue to join. So this is our fourth webinar in this webinar series, the Live Well Faculty Live Well series. I get the tongue twisting with the Live Well as we use that word in a few different contexts here at Ohio State. And we are obviously recording what's going to be a great presentation from two of our faculty colleagues at the university who are going to showcase what they're doing in their classrooms to promote wellness. And also it gets into the curriculum as a whole, it filters, it flows out from the classroom into the curriculum, but certainly the classroom setting. I'm going to introduce our first speaker, and then some of you heard, I'm going to go off. I'll monitor the chat box, so feel free to put some stuff in the chat box. We also, I believe, have the we have the Q&A function because it is a webinar room. So feel free to put some stuff in the Q&A. We can monitor that as well. Chat's obviously easy for people. And then I will introduce our second presenter, and then we should have a few minutes for Q&A or comments just generally, or maybe what you're doing out there in your own classrooms or ideas you have. We should have a few minutes at the end. This goes till 1:00. And if we end early, we end early. And if we go till 1, we go till 1. So welcome. And let me go ahead and introduce Tanya. Tanya, is it okay if I refer to you as Tanya, since a lot of us are peers? Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Tanya Apke, an associate professor and director of clinical education in the School of Health and Rehab Sciences Physical Therapy Division at Ohio State. Tanya is an emeritus board certified orthopedic physical therapist, a credentialed trainer for the American Physical Therapy Association, clinical instructor credentialing program. That's a mouthful. And completed the APTA, that organization I just mentioned, Health Policy and Administrative Section Leadership, Administration, Management, and Professionalism Leadership Certification Program. You also, as we were just talking about before, completed a graduate certificate in the health and wellness coaching in December of just, like a month-ish ago. I guess it is February 1 today, so December, and currently serving your second term as president of the Ohio Physical Therapy Association. There's a lot of other credentials that Tanya has, and Tanya, you are welcome to share them as you would like. Your research interests include clinical education models, the impact on student clinicals on clinician productivity, leadership development, and professional issues, healthcare policy, et cetera. So I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'm going to go off and be quiet. So thank you, Tanya, so much for being here.
Thanks, Megan, for the opportunity to share. I'm super passionate about wellness and the implications that it has for our students. I will start by saying I am in no way, shape, or form an expert in this area, and I feel like I'm early in my journey of implementing some wellness strategies in the classroom. So I'll just share kind of where my journey is and where I started, and then hopefully, it could be a spark for others to do something similar. So just a little bit of background, how I got started with this. I started really diving into the literature, which, as health professionals and academicians, that's what we do. We dive into the literature. We learn what's the evidence. And in physical therapy, there's a lot of evidence to demonstrate that stress and anxiety in our DPT students is significant. It's been shown to be higher than in age and gender matched peers. PT and OT students together have higher levels of stress and anxiety than the general population. And then there's another study that I looked at that I thought was really interesting that talked about adapting appropriate coping mechanisms as learners. And if those are not developed and we're not coaching students in developing their own wellness practices, it can have a negative impact in their career. Burnout in any of the health professions is extraordinarily high and is getting a lot of attention from both state and national organizations. So this is very timely, and teaching our students to have some strategies was really resonated with me. So how this all started for me was, number one, looking in the literature. Number two, last year, while I was going through my health and wellness coaching program and learning a lot more from the coaching side of this, I attended a webinar that a couple of people from the College of Pharmacy put together, and they did some really interesting things in their classroom. And I was like, I could do that. And I really think that the rest of our faculty could do this in bite-sized chunks. So I'll come back to that, but that was like the last little push that I needed, that something needed to be done a little differently. Also, being a Buckeye Wellness Innovator was something, I've of course been plugged into the wellness resources that are all across campus. And so just knowing those things, I felt like it was all the stars aligned and everything kind of fell into place, and it was my time, and everything was telling me that I needed to do something. And so I did. After attending that webinar and having all this information at my fingertips, I put together a presentation for our faculty retreat that was in the spring, and to see if I would get some buy-in, to see if the rest of the faculty would support trying to implement some strategies into the classroom to help with wellness. We had noticed a significant issue even before COVID with our students related to their own personal wellness and the ways that they were coping, and building that resilience of our students in this very difficult graduate program. So I started by presenting some simple ideas, and of course, presenting the evidence. The faculty were very supportive of trying to do some things and starting small. So I teach a course in the summertime that is an introduction to physical therapy course. And one of my colleagues also teaches a lab course in the summer for our first year cohort. That's when they start. And we decided that we would start some things in the summer to kind of see how it would go. Then we would try to take it a little bit further in the fall semester, and then reassess and continue to do some things in the spring. So in the summer, I started with these things that the pharmacy, this is not my words, the College of Pharmacy called Take Fives. And essentially, these are 5 minutes that you work into class to do something related to one of the 10 dimensions of wellness that OSU identifies. And what they found was the students were most receptive to those things that came in the physical realm, the spiritual realm, the emotional realm, that sort of thing. So that's really where I stayed. Were in those realms that they had talked a lot about. So I did some mindfulness kinds of things, whether it was me leading a mindfulness activity or pulling something up from the internet. There's a ton of resources available. We did some coloring, some Take Five, some non-academic, just sort of fun connect questions as a way to bring in that social component as well. I also put a playlist together where I let a group of students give me their favorite upbeat, like motivational songs or something that gives them in a good mood. So I put together a playlist and played it during one of those Take Fives as well. We do some polling questions. Sometimes we would do like a question of the day. And then in our basic skills lab, that instructor did quite a bit of mindfulness activities, which worked out really well, particularly before their very first lab practical, which, there's a little nerves involved with that, of course. So that seemed to go over pretty well. So in the fall, we decided that we would try to do some things with all 3 of our cohorts. And that was a little ambitious. I will be the first to admit. There's a lot of things going on all at the same time. We have 3 cohorts of students. Fall is kind of crazy in our DPT program. So, but what we try to do is indicate on our weekly grid, which is how we keep track of what's happening in what classes for each of the cohorts, whether or not somebody was going to do one of those Take Five, so that we weren't all doing them all at the same time. So we had some commitment from the faculty to implement this, but we didn't want them all to happen in the same week or all to happen in the same day even. Additionally, we partnered with another group that also kind of fell in our lap, who had done some work with the rehab services, and one of our other faculty members had a connection with them. So we engaged with this group. They're called Elation, to do a well-being survey for our students, and they have some psychometrically sound questions. This is what they do for industry. So they were interested in getting involved in healthcare as well as academia. So it was like a perfect fit. So we did this well-being survey, hold on to your hats, right before midterm break. which is, like the high point of stress levels for the students. But we did that on purpose because we really wanted to see when it is a hot point, like what does your well-being look like? We also hosted a wellness lunch and learn at one point during the semester that was open for all of our students to attend since they're all on campus. We engaged the OSU Student Wellness Office to come in and talk to them about some wellness practices. And we had a modest attendance for that. I just wanted to give you a picture of what our grid looks like. And you can see like right here where it says that T5, that's how we indicated when we were doing those and which class was doing them. And so on our teams, our faculty teams channel is where I put some resources for our faculty to be able to draw from for those T5s. So the survey, as I mentioned, generated a well-being score for the students, and then also for each individual cohort, and then also for across the whole program. So it was really interesting data for us to look at to see, what were some of the triggers, what were some of the things that were, as they called it, the headwind that helped to improve their well-being, and some of the tailwind that was actually preventing them from having from their well-being score from being high. And so we're still combing through some of that data. We're working with Elation to be able to analyze that data in many different ways to help to inform our curriculum, help us to develop some resources. So the feedback from the students and the faculty are definitely supportive, but they'd like more resources, and we need to figure out ways that we can incorporate these Take 5s in particular. Some of the faculty were concerned about taking that 5 minutes away from class, which is a whole nother thing that we could talk a whole session about. But then our students felt like many of those activities were very helpful. They would like more of them, actually, and they would like it a little bit more consistently. So that was good feedback to hear. So our next steps, and the last thing that I'll close with is we have a student wellness coordinator in each of the classes, each of the cohorts. And so I had a meeting with them last week to talk about the results of the survey, where they think they are and what kinds of things they'd like to do, and try to get them involved with some wellness initiatives across the program. We met with both cohorts. Our third years are off campus now doing clinicals. So our other two cohorts are on campus. We met with them the first week of class to go over the results of that survey and just get some, kind of take the pulse of what their reactions were. We're still working on, and I'm working on this, is adding additional ideas to our Teams page. We're talking about other activities that we might do. Where one of the things that we're talking a lot about is financial wellness, especially with graduate students without a lot of scholarship opportunities. We're working on planning a wellness event this spring. This is something that will probably happen in the summer and into the fall, is just that "how are you today" question, and having them kind of check in with each other. And again, we're continuing to collect that data and get started. But really, the Take 5s were probably the biggest thing and the most helpful thing, and the thing that the students really liked, because it didn't ask them to do anything extra, which asking them to go someplace or attend something was something that they were a little bit resistant to. And it also really helped them to take a moment and be present for the next class, because our classes go so back to back. So thanks for the opportunity to kind of share what we've started with, and I'll turn it back over to Megan.
Thank you so much, Tanya. If we have time at the end, I want to circle back to that student wellness coordinator role. Well, now I would like to introduce my colleague, and I will also, not that Tanya's not a friend, but Krista and I have known each other. I'm pretty sure if I started in the fall in 2011, we probably met within the first couple months of me starting. So I've known Krista since I came to OSU in 2011. Krista Newt is our next presenter. Krista's been around for a while as well, College of Nursing, Oh, since 2001, goodness, 22 years, faculty member, and teaches in the pre-licensure program, specifically around psychiatric mental health nursing, the course on that one, as well as therapeutic communications, that's a course, and substance use in primary care course. So multiple roles, multiple courses. Krista is also the creator and program lead for what's called the Banding Together for Wellness program. Some of you may have heard that before. It has been around for quite a while and has been offered to the undergrad, particularly the pre-licensure nursing students since 2016. So Krista, I'm going to toss it to you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Megan. And I'm really excited to be here to talk with you all today about some strategies to use in the classroom. And Megan shared with you a few of the classes that I currently teach in. I have taught in a wide variety of classes over the 22 years of teaching at Ohio State, and anything from small clinical group type teaching to medium-sized teaching, 40 to 50 people per class. I even currently teach a really large enrollment class. I have 167 strong students in that course. And I teach online courses, so asynchronous and synchronous. So a lot of different variety of teaching and different courses that I have been involved with. So my presentation today is not that dissimilar to what Tanya shared. And interestingly enough, oh goodness, I thought I had the right thing pulled up. Sorry about that. I promise you, we did not speak ahead of time. However, some of my strategies are really consistent with the strategies that she's been using as well. And partly because the evidence tells us that's what works. And the other part is I just have anecdotal evidence that it works as well. And some of that is based on years working in psych mental health nursing. I also have worked in community liaison positions, so done some public health nursing as well. And these are things that have just been tried and true for me in practice as a nurse. So with that said, I'm going to share with you what I call my wellness toolbox. And I call it this with my students as well. I share with them that I give them strategies to fill their wellness toolbox, and that we talk about all the variety of reasons that that's important, not only as just a human being here on this planet, but also as somebody who's going through the education process and the stressors and just realities that come with that, and as future healthcare providers. So I have that added twist as well. So within this presentation, I'm just going to talk about 5 strategies. It was really difficult to narrow it down to 5 because I have a lot more than that, which I would be happy to share with anyone at any point in time if you wanted to connect with me. And I put my email here at the end. But through this presentation, on each of the 5 slides, I have the variety of strategy options that you can tailor to whatever size classroom you have. And I also just want to put out there that not all of these work for everyone. And I share that with students as well. And that's why we do a variety of different things. And I do take a few minutes. So just like Tanya said, I don't call them take 5s, but I do like that strategy name. I do take 5 minutes or less of every class period, or at least once a week, depending on how many times my course meets, to go over a wellness theme. So it's different every single time, so I can meet people where they are and with the variety of interests that I tend to hear. So my objectives in the classroom space are to provide strategies for their personal use. Also, because in a healthcare profession, we have the added benefit of them learning something and being able to pay it forward to their future clients. And I also think this is not really quite as recognized, but I like to give them information about how to take care of themselves because it reinforces a really important message from me as an educator that I care about them. I care about them and I care about their self-care. So that is something that interestingly really does come through with this. And where I see evidence of that is in my evaluations that students give of me in my teaching and of my course. At our college, we do additional course evaluations that are similar to the SEIs, but are geared more towards our entire course and how it's laid out rather than an individual. And that is a theme that students consistently report back on that they felt cared about. So, and that's important to me as their faculty person. So my first strategy that I'm going to share with you is infusion of play. So any way or shape or form that you can infuse fun into your classroom is it has a variety of really positive outcomes. One, it helps connect with students better, it fosters creativity, and it helps with their focus. And one of the tools that I use is by bringing Play-Doh to class. And I know sometimes people tag Play-Doh with a childhood activity, and maybe that brings a fond memory for somebody because you loved Play-Doh as a kid. That's the whole point of reintroducing it in a more adult type setting. It provides great tactile stimulation. So for students who are stressed, it can really help them to manipulate something like that in their hands. It can help people focus. It helps improve mood. There are other therapeutic uses that you can see there on this slide. And yes, I have used Play-Doh for years as a nurse in practice as well. So my suggestions for you are to in some way infuse something like this. So I will tell you, in my large 165 plus strong class, I don't really do this strategy because that's an awful lot of Play-Doh to pass out. If you want to take the time to do that, or if you have the funding to do that, by all means, I think students would probably love it. I do this in my 40 to 50 student classes and the lower levels as well. And obviously don't do this with my online classes, but I do suggest that they practice these strategies. So I give them Play-Doh. How do I get the Play-Doh? Well, I scour the retail stores in the fall and look for those little tiny Beggar's Night or Halloween night Play-Dohs that you can often find, and I get them after Halloween and usually at a pretty good discount. I also make it sometimes. It's more cost effective. It's really easy to make. And on this slide, I've given you a link for an easy and quick Play-Doh recipe. I will tell you, students love it. The other thing you can do is fill like little water balloons, just the small, tiny balloon size, with something like sand, cornstarch, flour, or birdseed. That works really well. And while they can't make anything with it, it's really nice for that tactile stimulation impact. It's interesting because I did this last fall. I've done it multiple times in the past, and it was intriguing the number of students that brought back that Play-Doh container every single week, brought it out and used it during class. And what they tell me is that it helped them to focus better. So I thought that was kind of fun, and it's just a fun thing to do. All right, the next strategy is a focus on nutrition. So I term it as healthy nutrition equals mind and mood fuel. And I've done this a variety of ways, but I typically highlight like our mood boosting foods. So you can see those there on that list. I also sometimes put energy boosting foods, sometimes focus boosting foods. It just depends on the theme that I want to go with. And my suggestions for how to use this in a classroom, a little tiny bit of education, but they don't really need much of that. And in 5 minutes or less, you don't have time for doing any major education, but I just give them some tips. And then I share a healthy, low-cost recipe. There have been some terms that I've shared a different recipe every week. Sometimes I have students share recipes with each other. In my lower enrollment classes, I have provided like a healthy snack. And once again, I scour the dollar stores and the discount retail stores, and I can find great things. I scored this past fall by finding dark chocolate covered almonds at a dollar store, which is a major chain store around where I live. And it was inexpensive and students loved it. I also share my go-to smoothie recipe every single semester, at least once in every class I teach. And I call them Shrek shakes. Students get a big kick out of that. The whole Shrek thing comes from the fact that if you put enough greens in it, it comes out a really pretty color of green, hence the word Shrek shakes. And I actually heard back on my evaluations from students how much they like this smoothie recipe. So feel free to share as well. All right. Tanya said this as well. It sounds like she infused a lot of mindfulness into her courses. I highly recommend doing the same. My favorite activity to do, and I have done a bunch of them, is called the Drawing Our Breath activity. So my suggestions for this, students that bring iPads, you can have them open up an iPad screen to draw on. If they have a laptop that they can draw on, that works. If not, just notebook paper works fine, or folder paper. And I bring paper to class as well the week that I'm teaching them this so that they can do it. This exercise can be found at the link here on this slide. It's really easy to do. But I also, if I wasn't going to use this, or if you don't think this would fit your class, then I would encourage you, if you don't have it already downloaded, to download the OSU Wellness app. And I have a link for that on here as well. And to look under your emotional health, because that will give you a variety of different mindfulness activities that you can infuse, or at minimum, that you could share with your students and give them the links so that they could start practicing them. That easily fits into 1 minute of class time if you aren't going to actually follow through and practice. All right. Enhancing mood with music. So another strategy is to incorporate music into your classroom space in some way, shape, or form. So I've given a variety of bullet points here for the benefits of infusing music. How I use them in class is I often play music as students are coming into the classroom, and I just choose a variety of different genres of music because they're, everybody's a little different with what their tastes are. Sometimes at break time, I'll play music for students as well. And I often take suggestions from the students, which is a fun way to get them to engage in this. I have listed at the bottom of this slide 4 different music pieces, all of which have been studied as mood enhancers. And I often play clips from each of these in class. I have the last one highlighted because I think that one really works well as a mindfulness activity as well. It is a Coldplay song, and they have a really neat video that goes with it. So if you clicked on that, I would encourage you maybe to show that in class. I use that in class just about every semester. Students find it fascinating, all the different animations that are happening on the screen. So once again, a great way to be mindful, as well as to play some music that has some evidence base behind it from a mood enhancement perspective. And then last but not least, I encourage you to encourage your students to be self-compassionate. So self-compassion is being unconditionally grateful for ourselves. And I don't know about you and the students that you interact with, but I see a theme, and have for years, this isn't new, of students being a little bit hard on themselves, right? They don't often say the kindest things to themselves, whether that be externally or just internally in their heads. Also, they tend to be so unforgiving of mistakes they make. They're so compassionate towards the students around them when they don't do well on a project or an assignment or a quiz, yet they're so hard on themselves. So I try to help them strategize ways to form or enhance their self-compassion. I do it through use of positive affirmations. So positive affirmations, if you're not familiar with it, are I statements designed to motivate ourselves and to just care for ourselves. So it's a great way to start to instill this theme of being self-compassionate in my lower enrollment classes. So once again, that's like 40, 50 students or less. I pass out positive affirmation cards, such as the one that you can see here on the screen. I have a variety of different sayings that I use. These are actually quick and easy. I just hopped on Pinterest to find an idea to begin with, if I'm being honest with you, and then just went with it. Easy to create. Students love them, where I see them putting them on their laptops. I see them posting them on their notebooks. I even had a student email me not too long ago, because I just did this in one of my other classes that I teach, telling me that she actually taped it to her dashboard of her car so that it's what she saw when she started her day every day. So I thought that was really cool. And I love hearing stories like that back from students. But if you don't have the ability to make cards like this, fair enough. I don't in my large enrollment class either. So I give them a couple of apps, and I've shared a couple with you on this screen. The ThinkUp app and the #self-love app are both 2 awesome self-motivation and self-esteem building apps. And with that, thank you so much for listening. I hope I helped to ignite some interest and maybe some ideas in you. And I'm always happy to answer questions or give you more ideas, because like I said, my toolbox is quite full of a lot of different variety of activities. So thanks, everyone.
I love that you kicked off with fun. Love it.
Yeah, I know we don't do that enough.
It gets people out of their comfort zone too, for instructors, like, how are your students going to react to it? And then it also gets students out of their comfort zone, like, oh, we're doing this in class. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And for the Play-Doh thing, so I have students all different age groups. It's not just like 19-year-olds in my class, and everybody seems to really just have fun with that. So
yeah. So Adrienne, I just want to address your quick question. It's about the PowerPoints. We put those all on the web page where all the recordings are. So I don't have that link off the top of my head. However, there will be an evaluation coming out to all attendees that we have on our registration list. So we'll include the link in there again because I am unprepared and don't have it. So hi, Adrian. I know we're at time, but if you have any questions, if you could stay on for a couple minutes, I want to make sure that if anybody has any comments, questions, or ideas that you're doing or want to do, and Tanya and Krista are here maybe to work through a couple of those, or you can always email them after the fact. That's fine too.